So I just finished or graduated from my first university for medical school, right, on my bachelor's. And during that semester, we had a dissertation that we had to do. Dissertation. And the end of the dissertation, we had to make a presentation where we would speak about what we learned or what we did for the past for the 8 weeks that we were doing the dissertation. And it was a presentation in front of like 2 invigilators and like the other peers in the class, right? So it was a simple presentation, 10 minutes. So it was worth 5%, right? Nothing to go crazy about. And if you did dissertation fine, you would do fine in the presentation because you've done the work for like the past 8 weeks, right? And I remember practicing for the presentation for a good week or so. And I'm pretty confident with presenting and being able to deliver quite an engaging presentation. But I remember that moment when I got onto stage, right? Not even when I got on the stage, before. So I was like maybe the 5th or 6th person to present out of the maybe 10 people in the room. And every single person, as they called their names, I was getting more and more nervous, right? And I could feel my heart rate rising. I could feel like the sweat drops on my face. And I was genuinely just like shaking, like trembling. And it was odd, right? Because this is something I've done before. I know I'm capable of doing it. So why am I so nervous? And I just kept going through my head, why am I so nervous? And it got to the point where it was like, because I actually didn't even know when I was going to present. I just knew I was in the middle, right? So it got to that point where I was just waiting, and I had to genuinely just bite my hand, like if you've seen Attack on Titan, like literally guard on my hand, because I needed something to take out or take away the nervousness, right? And it's such a surreal experience because it was like kind of, I wouldn't say the first time I've ever been nervous, of course, but it's the first time it's happened in a presentation. Alas, I go and do the presentation and the nerves kind of go away while I'm presenting because, that's how those things go. But it's a bit of a long-winded intro, but I wanted to talk about why being nervous is absolutely normal, right? And perhaps if I had this video before I presented, I would have felt a little bit better. Not necessarily feel less nervous, but feel less bad about being nervous, right? I think at least myself, I tried to, obviously we're a lot of us here, maybe if you're watching this channel, you're hard on yourself, you want to improve, you want to become better. And, people, myself included, see nervousness as a sign of weakness, right? A sign of like, hey, this guy, he's feeling nervous. He doesn't feel like he can do it. You're not confident, right? So I think going through school, going through life, going through a lot of different challenges, you start to realize that nervousness and your confidence and your ability is less to do with what you actually can do and more to do with what you think you can do. And let me break it down for you, right? Being nervous and being excited as a physiological state, as to what you're feeling in your body, are, for all intents and purposes, exactly identical, other than your mental perception to what you're feeling, right? So let's do a quick breakthrough, right? You're nervous, right? What are the different things you'll feel on your body? Well, your heart rate will rise, right? You might sweating, you might start sweating, you might start talking fast, you might start being a little erratic, you might start, saying things that you might not, start like having some weird movements, right? And that's perceived as bad because you're nervous, you feel like you're anxious, right? But if you take that sign of being nervous and you flip it on its head and say, well, what if I'm excited? Well, imagine you are, I don't know, watching a football game, right? And you went to the stadium for the first time, and this is like a great game. This is like the finals, right? You're excited, right? Now, what happens to your body at the same time, right? Your heart rate's going to go up, probably going to be like, moving around. You're going to be very energetic, right? So being nervous and being excited, they're basically the same thing in the sense that it's not a matter of what you're feeling. It's how you, perceive the things that you're feeling. So when you're excited, say for example, you're excited to play a game with your friends, you typically would do better than when you're bored, right? Because when you're bored, you're not really engaged. You're not really, you're not really giving 100%. You're just like, whatever happens. But if you're excited, you're enjoying, you're genuinely engaged, then when you play the game, you're going to be like, oh my God, I want to do well here. I want to do well there. I'm like, oh, and then when something happens, like you're more like attuned to your surroundings, right? So that's the same thing. And it's like an unlock in your brain, that anxiety, that fear, that nervousness, what you feel on the inside. It's not bad. It's not abnormal. It's normal. And because it's normal, you can use it to your advantage, right? So while I was doing that presentation, right, I kept reminding myself, like, yeah, this is normal. This is not like, I'm not tweaking out, I'm not bugging out. This is completely normal. Obviously, I'm going to be nervous or excited for a big presentation because I'm presenting in front of people I can't feel. It's high stake presentation. But when you use that to your advantage, you use that to a way that, like, listen, I know I need to perform well. So instead of worrying about like how other people will kind of perceive me, I'll just do the best I possibly can, right? And if I mess up, I mess up. I make a mistake, I keep going, and you keep saying, like, listen, it's completely normal, right? And yeah, I think the essence of being nervous and being like, just feeling that feeling inside of yourself, like, say for example, you're going up to a person you've never spoken to before. This is something I relate to a lot. Where because I like to compliment people if I see something cool, or I like to talk to different people, right? But every single time before I talk to someone, I'm always nervous, right? I'm always nervous, and I feel like that I don't know how to describe it, that feeling swelling inside of me that, oh, something is gonna go wrong. But you still have to act. You still have to act in spite of that nervousness, right? Now, to end off this video, I'd like to bring in a quote bring in kind of a experience from an anime I watch. Now, I watch a lot of anime, big shocker, but this one's from My Hero Academia. Now, its fandom is absolutely crazy, but they have some great messages. And one of the characters, his name is Kirishima, he was kind of going through a emotional moment, his origin story, quite literally. And essentially, he wasn't able to act during a time that he should have liked to save some people, because it's like a hero show, right? And he was like kind of sulking. He was kind of like, down in the dumps. And he watched a video from, he eventually stumbled on a video from one of his idols. I don't remember what his name, but they were going through an interview from this idol, right? It's not an actual idol, like a hero idol, somebody who he looks up to. And essentially, during that interview, he was being asked, how are you so manly? How are you so, how are you able to act in spite of being like, act in all these crazy situations? Because this is obviously a hero throughout the show, right? These are people with crazy superpowers, right? How are you able to act? And how do you not feel nervous while acting? How do you not feel like, paralyzed to act? And the idol basically said to him, it was like, what do you mean I don't feel nervous? Everyone feels nervous at some point, and if you are not, then you're just, crazy, you're stupid, because being nervous is or scared or fear or all of those things. Those are responses that your brain, that your body has been developing over years and years and years so that you can stay safe, right? Obviously, you're going to feel like nervous or scared or afraid when you're looking over maybe a cliff, because your body says, listen, if I go down there, it's over, right? So it's a mechanism to kind of keep you in check, right? But as this idol, or the guy was speaking, he was just like, although I have that feeling inside of me that oh, I don't want to do this, the feeling or the regret that he would feel if he was not able to, in this case, save people that he was able to, he could have saved, but because he didn't move, that outshined, that overshined, whatever the fear that he had, or the nervousness that he had, or the the feeling of being afraid that he had by a million, by 1,000, right? And it's kind of having that type of not belief, but that type of I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like, you have to have that symbol, I guess, or message in your mind that, like, listen, like, this is gonna be shitty. Like, I feel like shit. I feel nervous. I feel like that, and I'm like, you feel all this, but you gotta be like, well, what is more important? Me feeling like a way, some sort of way, and not acting, or am I gonna regret not giving my 100% despite what you feel, despite the emotions that you have? And yeah, I think that was an amazing moment. If you guys haven't watched My Hero Academia, you need to watch it. Just don't go on Twitter, or don't go on any sort of, just don't tell anyone to watch it. But yeah, it's an amazing show. But the essence is that you got to be able to act like, despite your nervousness, despite your fear, right? Because that is what is important, right? You got to figure out what's important. And if it's important, then you'll do it regardless. But yeah, that's something I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to record another 2 videos. So hopefully I kind of get into the flow of recording, and the next 2 ones are even better. Yeah.